All right, so I'm here with Felipe in Sao Paulo, and
Hi.
here with Adrian and Sasha, and we've so I had a quick discussion with Sasha about trufont back during the 8i Pi here, and so I thought we'd do a hangout because it was a sort of a bit of a squishy issue, and maybe email and threads back and forth would be take a long time.
We're going to tell Lasse that we're recording.
Yeah. So oh yeah, Lasse's joined us as well. So we're recording as normal. So Adrian, I wonder if you could explain to us kind of what your vision is for the user interface of trufont.
Well, in terms of vision, I can't say, globally what I want, but I can respond to a few particular concerns that were in the issues. For instance, people were requesting a global menu bar. And so the first thing is it wouldn't make sense on some platforms, for instance on Windows, because on Windows you don't have a global menu bar. So I looked at how you do it with Qt, and basically if you want a global menu bar you have to declare one that's parentless, and then you have to add everything, every element to this menu bar. So it would introduce a little platform-specific things, because we have to dispatch between platforms. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. Maybe you have questions or things you want to.
Well, my proposal was that for situations where maybe it doesn't make sense, like that you maybe have a menu that only makes sense in some window, say the metrics window, and not the glyph window.
Yeah.
Then have that menu, disabled, grayed out, where it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't really see like many upsides to this approach, because it means you'd have all of the time like half of your menu entries disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's a bit weird. And also with Qt, since you have to declare this parentless menu, I haven't looked into the details of it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd have to kind of work this out as well.
Yeah.
As a general question, would you be open to having different user interfaces on different platforms so that it would match the respective local conventions? Or would you rather want to have one UI across all platforms?
Well, I think it's always a question when you do multi-platform program. And also, yeah, when you look at Qt, it clearly lets you choose between these two paradigms, because it doesn't force you to adopt different things on different platforms, and it lets you do whatever you want. So in terms of platform specificness, we already have a few elements already. For instance, font size, because it's not consistent across platforms. So you have a few spots where we dispatch font size differently on OS X. Yeah, of course, I'd be open to dispatch between platforms. For instance, I saw that on OS X, with the settings, you generally want a toolbar with images. For instance, while on Windows it's less common, I think. Also, if you look at RoboFont, for instance, it also has this toolbar because it has the global menu on OS X on the top, and then you have this toolbar. And maybe if you don't have a global menu, you already have a menu in your application, then maybe the toolbar makes less sense, and you can just use the keyboard shortcuts or the menus. So yeah, definitely dispatching between the platforms would be quite an option.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for example, one thing that I noticed when I was playing around with trufont is that at least on macOS, but I believe also on other platforms, there's a relatively strong, oh, excuse me, I'm getting kicked out. Sorry about that. Okay, did not get kicked out. So on macOS, it's a pretty strong convention to have one document per window and one window per document. And if you then have like different parts of the document, like for example in a large slideshow, or if you open a PDF in macOS, it doesn't make multiple windows for each page, but instead it has like all the content in the same document window, and then it has a little view control, typically on the left-hand side of the window, where you can switch between pages. Or can switch between different slides or whatever it is. And so in the context of a font editor, I was wondering if, at least on macOS, but maybe also everywhere, you could have one single window which would show the current view where you're editing, and then the glyph palette as basically as a palette on the left-hand side of the window. Because currently you have like one window with glyphs, and then you double-click it, and then it opens a new document essentially. But it's actually a new document. It's just a new window. That
so all the windows that depend on one font are actually children of the main font window.
And that is a bit confusing on, at least on macOS, because there the conventions is like just, it's very strong convention to have one window for each document.
Okay, I'm used to RoboFont, and I know that in RoboFont you have the choice between two different modes. So you have a single window mode, as you said, and multiple window mode. Yeah. So yeah, essentially this will involve making a toolbar, and then you click a button, and it just hides one widget and it shows one other. So yeah, I think it's definitely possible to do.
I remember that I think when Dave was presenting trufont for some people at Bedard's place here, I think Dave had some trouble to access the font inspector when Glyph view was active. That's just one example of trouble with different menus with different contexts.
He had trouble opening the inspector window, is that what you say?
You can't, currently the Glyph view menu doesn't have the option to open the inspector.
Right. Normally in the latest master, it's declared as application-wide the shortcut. And the shortcoming of that is that since I switched to opening a new main window when you open a new font, it declares another application-wide shortcut, and it makes a conflict with the other. So because you can have only one application shortcut at a time, and normally you have an option that's called widget with children, and it only opens on the one widget you declare as children, but I haven't gotten this option to work. So it's either the standard shortcut that works on one widget or one that works on the whole application. And you can just one-shot declare it, because you can very possibly close the original font window once you've opened another one and you close the first one. But I don't know whether it's a bug, or it might be that I just haven't gotten it to work yet, because you need to attach it to the widget, and maybe since it's in a toolbar, in a menu bar that's a child of the window, then maybe it's attached to the toolbar, to the menu bar, and not the window itself. And so it might be why it doesn't work. So if you want to experiment with that, you're welcome to do so. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It was confusing, sorry. I would have to look at the code. I think I understood what is the basic idea, but I have to look carefully. I was just mentioning,
like you have one shortcut.
Not because of the issue itself, but as an example of the kind of confusion that the user can get when you have different menus in different contexts. Just
right.
yeah.
Yeah. So normally the inspector window, you can open it anytime and also hide it anytime. And it's always when the current glyph change signal is emitted, then you have the new glyph that pops in. So normally it's declared as what QD calls a tool window, and it's a small window that you can't resize. You can just close it, and it stacks on top of its parent, I think. So it's a special kind of window. I think it's especially a Windows concept, but it maps to standard window on OS X. I haven't tried extensively on OS X how it looks like, but it's basically that.
Yeah, I don't have this problem here because I see both menus at once, but you in your system you see just one global one.
Mm-hmm.
So Mac OS users will have this kind of problem.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what's the question at stake here?
I think we can move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Other questions?
So, Sasha, does that answer your sort of question about where the UI is going?
Oh yeah, totally. If it's okay, I thought it would like send at some later point like a little wireframe with some drafts, but I don't know if you like it. Just like would be a suggestion, then I think we can discuss it over the email. Mm-hmm. But hey, by the way, congratulations! It's really pretty usable already, I think.
Thanks.
How realistic is it, by the way, to do the on the one of the mail threads or GitHub threads or whatever? Dave mentioned the possibility to edit glyphs in context. That you would have a bit of a text, like enter some text, and edit just one of the glyphs and still see the neighboring glyphs. A bit like other editors do that as well, like GlyphSap, for example.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that Dave mentioned was the ability to do it post-shaping. So basically running the text through half-bars to find the glyph IDs positioned, and then just do, I don't know how realistic that is and so on, but I'd be curious about that because it sounds very exciting as a feature.
Yeah, so the plan is to add the possibility to kind of write sentences in the glyph view. So you can have multiple letters, so you can only edit one at once. So when you click one of the glyphs, it switches to editing that. And it would also have half-buzz support. QD has a half-buzz built in, but I don't know if it has APIs to use it. So it might be needed to package it externally as well. And there is also from Tal Lemming, the same guy who wrote DEFCON. There's a package called what's it called? But basically, he wrote basic shaping engine entirely in Python. It only doesn't support GPOS type 7 lookups, but it has all the basics. So, like if we could propose like either half-buzz or this package, if you don't want to have to install the external half-buzz dependency. Yeah.
I believe that Tal deprecated it. He's not maintaining it.
That's how? What?
I believe that Tal stopped developing it.
Really?
I think so.
Okay. So it's what powers the future preview extension of RoboFont. So yeah.
So, could you explain? As I mean, Felipe was asking me about this, and I wasn't totally sure if I really understood. Could you explain how RoboFab and DEFCON relate?
Well, basically, RoboFab, it stems from RoboFog, and the goal was to add a scripting layer on top of FontLab. So it's kind of really old, it has a big legacy. And DEFCON, it's like, it was rewritten to, it's the backbone of RoboFont, basically. So it's made to allow for writing font editors. For instance, it has the notification system that's critical for UI programs that you don't have in RoboFab, because RoboFab is just a scripting library. It's not made to create applications. And DEFCON is also more barebone. It doesn't have a whole lot of functionality. It just has the basics. So if you look at RoboFont, it's quite backbone as well, barebone. And most of RoboFont functionality is in DEFCON. Like, for instance, when you insert points, there is a function for that in DEFCON that we use. There is remove overlap in the form of Boolean operations package that is in DEFCON, but it's an old version. Now you have the new version from Friedrich with the C++ wrapper. So you have kind of slow Python code and faster C++ code. Yeah. Yeah, we are going to need that for overlap removal, because Qt also has some basic overlap removal capability, but it's in the QPainter path class, and you'd have to map it back to points. So it's a bit, it's not optimal, I think. So I'd rather we package Boolean operations. So you can use that from scripting as well. Yeah, basically. Yeah, so DEFCON doesn't have segments built in. You just have contours and points. And if you look at the code, if you do contour.segments, it calls a function that generates your list of segments. And it's actually some processing to generate them. Like you have to analyze the points. And so it's one less level of looping if you want to access the points compared to RoboFab. And you don't necessarily need segments. So working with points, when writing the editor, I worked with points directly almost all of the time. So yeah. And yeah, and DEFCON obviously does not carry all of the legacy of RoboFab. So as Tao said, RoboFab has some really old code. It has a lot of wrappers to work with FontLab, to work with. It even has a stub implementation for FontForge and all. So it's kind of got a lot of code, and DEFCON is like more recent and more.
And is pure Python only?
Sorry?
It's pure Python and doesn't have dependencies on other editors.
Right. So yeah, personally, I don't see I don't have any interest in using RoboFab at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that you know, if we can port the you know, the abstract point pen or whatever it was, it seemed to be there was a couple of things from RoboFab that were being used.
Yeah, a couple of pens.
If those pens moved over,
the base pen is just an abstract class, so it's like it's nothing.
Yeah.
But it's got all pens subclass. And FontTools does have already some pens, and also it has a base pen or struct pen, but it doesn't have all of the pens in RoboFab. And I think it would make sense to migrate these pens from RoboFab to FontTools, because they are not specific to RoboFab. So you can use RoboFab or DEFCON and use these pens all alike. Like you don't need to use RoboFab to make use of them. So maybe it would make more sense to have them in FontTools.
Don't hesitate to send a pull request on FontTools if you want to add something. Just do it.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, so there's issue 42, which I posted a long comment on this morning, which has got all of the sort of issues and comments from the pre-release issue tracker.
Okay.
And so there was a couple of things there, where we'd had some sort of discussion. In particular, the sort of plugin system seems to me like the sort of biggest thing, because it seems like a lot of the things which so I'm suggesting that should be added maybe are better done as extensions, and that perhaps this suggests splitting or renaming the trufont repo back to DEFCON Qt, so that it is very obviously scoped to the font editor widgets, and then trufont would be a new repo, which is a much smaller project, which is essentially a list of extensions that together make an editor.
A list of extensions, you mean?
Well, so
it would be essentially the widgets plus the package manager.
Yeah.
And you can download whatever you want. By the way, Mechanic is open source, so we can probably look at the code and how it's made.
Yeah.
And it has a server to make the calls to download all of the things.
Mm-hmm.
But it basically works with GitHub repositories. So it's quite simple to work with. It's a quite flexible system, so I think it's a good thing to work with.
I guess. Sorry. Go ahead.
Is there anything on? So thanks, everyone. It was a great meeting in person. And cool stuff here.
So I guess really what I'm saying is what I wanted to sort of better understand from you is with Mechanic, there are a lot of things registered in Mechanic with varying levels of feature completeness or quality control testing, documentation, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that you want to scope trufont smaller than what RoboFont already ships out of the box.
What do you have in mind?
Is that the case? Do you see trufont as being more simple than what RoboFont ships out of the box?
Not particularly, but what future do you?
Well, because Glyph's app ships a lot of features, and it also has an extension system, and I don't know if they have. I don't think they have like a package manager, but Georg and Rainer sort of maintain these huge plugin sets where they pull in a lot of other people's extensions and sort of maintain them. So they're sort of Glyphs, and then they're sort of Glyphs Plus with George and Rainer's sort of official extensions. And Frederick Berlan has had a very different approach where RoboFont is very bare bones when you get it out of the box, and then you can go and install Mechanic and so on, and piece together a lot of extensions. But there isn't, as far as I know, like a core list in the same way that the Glyphs guys have of extensions which are kind of blessed as being stable and very typically useful for everybody. And so in terms of recommending trufont to a typical type designer, if someone's going to sign up to a type design class in Paris or London or whatever for 12 weeks, like the Type at Paris program that was on this summer, if they were to use trufont to do their course, then if it only has what RoboFont has out of the box, probably you can't do the course because it's missing features which are sort of maybe not necessary, but certainly convenient for being productive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like the interpolated point move, for instance.
Right. And so there,
What we could do is when we ship the binaries, to ship them with default extensions.
Mm-hmm.
And then if people don't like them, either they build from source and they don't have pre-built extensions, or they can just remove what they got from the binaries if they don't want to have that in their program.
Yeah, I think that's sort of what I'm hoping that you can sort of give us some leadership on.
It would be a bit bare bone, but batteries included.
Right. There's sort of trufont core, which is what's on trufont now, and then there's having extensions in the trufont GitHub organization, which are considered official. So we could have our the trufont official nudge extension.
Right.
And then the trufont release packages include all of those extensions because they're considered part of the trufont project.
Uh-huh.
And then, if I've got whatever in my GitHub, I can register that, and then, like in Mechanic, you download the Git package, you download, the official release package, and then in the extensions menu, then you can see this list of stuff that's of unknown quality on GitHub.
Yeah.
That sounds good to you?
Yeah.
All right. So in terms of the documentation stuff, then I think this is sort of the next thing that I can contribute would be to start fleshing out some of this stuff. In Markdown files in the trufont.github.io repo. And then sort of on the developer side, this sort of extensions system needs to be defined and implemented.
Mm-hmm.
So
we don't need to re-implement the wheel, so we can take a similar system to what Mechanic does, because I think it's quite good.
Yes, I agree completely. I mean, I think that the package format looks like we can use it without modification.
Is it tied to GitHub only or to Git technology in general? Because it would be good to not be tied to a single provider, because there may be people willing to use Gitorials or GitLab or other.
Gitorials closed, I think.
Yeah, Bitbucket.
But yeah. I mean, well, there's two things. There's the packaging format for extensions, and then there's Mechanic, which is a package manager, which can can fetch packages from internet.
Yeah, the compatibility is a matter of what you support in the server, I think. Yeah. I mean, what the server fetches, and then when you click download, what it gives to you. If it's compatible with GitHub, then you just register with your GitHub repo, and then. But if you use the Git protocol, then it might be possible to just input a Git repository, and it downloads from that.
Yeah. So. We talked about vanilla, and you said that you don't think there's a need for that. I had a quick chat with Adam Torok privately, and he said that he's going to chat with Yuri about it when Yuri gets back from holiday. I'm not too sure how important that is. I think that it would be good to offer a convenience API, because vanilla makes it very quick to do simple things. And a lot of people have
Qt as well. Have you wrote some Qt code?
But I understand what you mean.
I sincerely think it would be a waste to wrap Qt, because it's already it's very consistent and simple APIs. So.
Okay. So maybe a porting guide would be more useful than a convenient.
Well, there's a tutorial, not a porting guide.
Sorry?
You just explain things. There's no need to be comparative with vanilla. You just explain how you do the things. I mean, we don't need to say that's how you do it in vanilla and then that's how you do it in Qt. We can just say that's how you do it in Qt right away. So not a porting guide, but a tutorial. And then we'd have some examples to kind of show what you can do, what you can build, and so on.
Okay.
But it's something that's to do still. So whoever wants to work on that is welcome to do so.
Right.
What's most important on the roadmap is so there's this plugin system.
Mm-hmm.
Then we need to keep on consolidating like the current widgets to define all the shortcuts, finish the functionality. So we have solid widgets, and then the main repo will be pretty much future complete, and then we can start working on additional things on the ecosystem, like for instance little extensions like this interpolated nudge move, for instance, and then bigger things like preparator and a kerning editor. So I'm leaning towards a separate software for kerning edition.
Mm-hmm. And do you see that as being a completely separate, name, or do you see that as being, like a very featured core extension?
I don't really know, but I don't think it's very important. I mean, the one important thing to do is to program it, and afterwards we'll see.
Yeah, I guess I think it's important in terms of trying to gather more support and resources for the project, having a clear roadmap, and sort of whatever is defined.
You could very much imagine
to have clarity over the brand and what trufont represents.
But you could very much imagine this other softwares be completely independent from trufont itself. Like it could very well be a completely different development team, and it's the good thing of having a plugin system and ability to work with different software in UFO. I mean, it's a possibility.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Larsa, do you have any questions or comments for Adrian?
Not really. I'm just listening most of the time. So what you said before was like having this small core program and then having like a release that extends it. Reminds me a lot of like how Linux is organized, like this distributions thing. So you have like somebody who makes the kernel, and some people like Debian or so who make the distribution. And I think it's kind of a good model, because you can have like people who care about like the font editor that is good for making like layer fonts, or the other font editor that is good for making interpolated superfamilies or whatever. So I kind of like that idea of having like a core and then like a defined idea how you could like build your specialized tool out of it or something. Or maybe just the mechanic editor could have like packages that bundle different good tools for one topic, something like that. So you can
I think
activate the color font bundle. That would be cool too.
Yeah, or the like spacing and kerning bundle.
Yes, exactly.
I think it reminds me much more. I understand the comparison with Linux distributions, but it actually reminds me much more of the Mozilla browser and its extensions. The way they have to be careful with quality control of the extensions that are available in their.
Yeah, right.
I think this brings similar problems because basically anybody can publish all sorts of quality of code.
Yes, of course. So that's why you have like a curated list of good software, and probably with rating system, stars or whatever.
I have the impression that due to the popularity of the web browser, they have really a huge task at hand to analyze the code quality and to approve each extension.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
We got to be prepared if it gets popular, how to handle that.
Should we build in a web browser? I think it's like 90% in Qt anyways already. So we could end up with the same problem. Exactly the same problem. Whatever. No, so I'm not really having much to say at this point. I just was curious to listen, and it's very interesting.
So, Adrian, so in RoboFront, there's the Mojo modules, and so those include things like a web browser, the Boolean operation stuff, and I think there's sort of two main areas. There's like the observers, and so Lasse, is it right that you've been working on the undo system?
No, I just had a look at it. So what we currently have as undo system is basically that we just serialize a whole glyph and save that data into a list. So that's not what I would consider a undo system. It's really the easiest thing in a way that you can do. Yeah. But I was kind of not so happy with the way DEFCON is structured at the moment to do a really like solid command-based undo system where you can have like much more control about how it behaves. And,
right.
Like where you would like change some data and that change would commit a undo command to your queue, and it's not the undo command is not like the complete glyph. It's just like move that point to there, and then it's undone. That's the basic thing that you want to do, and then to make it usable, you would probably add on top kind of a transaction system. Actually, the Qt stuff that has already all that stuff scoped into it, you just need to add the same functionality on the model side, which is DEFCON. So, I was kind of at the beginning. I thought, oh well, that should be easy. But then I like read all the DEFCON stuff, and I'm not so convinced if it is easy actually. So, I'm not sure. So one thing is what to do with all these observers and commands that happen there all the time, and it's I'm not sure. I think it sounds easier to do than it actually is to do, and I'm not sure also how happy like Tal would be with the work that would have to happen there to make it happen. So we already have like a pretty serious DEFCON fork, and when we add that stuff, I think we moved far away. Huh?
Yeah, we have to see. Like, Tal didn't object to anything just yet.
Oh yes, of course, and I think he's not at the moment. He does not have so much time. So, but the question is, if we kind of hijack the project and just have our progressive branch of it, then we should like care to give it a good direction and to keep the quality up, because I think despite of the fact that I don't like how everything is written there, it's not like I don't like it. I would make it, I think, a bit differently, whatever. But I think it's very stable and it's very good, and the stuff that happens there has like a reason.
There's stuff that is missing in the UFO3 branch. For instance, there was serialization and undo manager support in UFO2 that isn't in UFO3. So if you want something, then Tal will probably be interested into pulling it. And also, so what I wanted to ask you is, since there was the undo manager thing in UFO2, and you say you don't like how DEFCON is, you don't like how the undo manager thing worked out in UFO2 branch?
I did not look so much at it actually. I think in the old branch. I just looked at the new branch and thought how to make something like that, and think, yeah, well, maybe I would try to, I think, change in a way how data is treated in those DEFCON objects, so that it's very clear. So these are the data fields that we want to like monitor for undo and redo, or that we want to serialize, stuff like that. So very easy because of the way how it is written right now. And I think like to have a common concept how this information, which data is the actual data and which data is just state or whatever, like to have a better a well-defined way how to know that at any time in the program, like when you want to serialize or just make a command.
So I'll just find another room. I'll be back in a sec.
Dave often has this problem that he is like that he has to move within like it's very common actually. I've seen it a lot. Interesting. So I'm not sure. I think it's like I think the way I would do it is a lot of work, you know. So I'm not sure if or how much.
You're not sure it fits into the original model of how it was made, you mean?
Again, please?
What you do doesn't really fit how DEFCON is made already?
Yeah, I think I would change a bit of DEFCON, and that is a lot of work to have the task to have this undo system, so that making that is easier. I would change a lot of stuff that is there at the moment. So that's the hard part, and then having this undo system is easy in the end.
What I would suggest is looking how it's done in the UFO2 branch.
Yeah, we can have a look. Yeah, of course.
Have a look, because like if I look at serialization, Tal dropped it in UFO3 branch because it wasn't up to date. And just thought I'm going to remove this because I have custom implementations in my own applications anyway. So it's pretty much what he told me for serialization. So for undo, it might be the same. So you might kind of have an existing structure in the form of the undo manager in the UFO2 branch. So it might be interesting to kind of take a look. And also, you know, speaking with Tal might be good too. I mean,
yes, of course.
He doesn't have a lot of time, and you know, when I was developing the app, I sent him quite a few emails in the beginning. He doesn't have a lot of time, so it takes a little bit of time to respond. But he always responds with great details and stuff. So he's always ready to kind of work with people and stuff. So I mean, if you want to discuss that with him, it's very possible to do.
Yeah, we should definitely find out how we can like move forward with DEFCON so that it is in his like that he approves it as well, because he did actually a very, very good job writing all this stuff and until now. But as we have right now like big needs for change in DEFCON actually mostly in DEFCON, and that it's not kind of his project, so so yeah, we should maybe we can have a hangout with him, like prepare something, think about what would be reasonable to do.
Have to really fork from the mainline DEFCON. At least it will have to be for a good reason. I mean, if it's just because it doesn't have a lot of time, then we can just delay, you know, mainlining our changes because we have our fork. But if we cannot really fork it and deviate from the mainline, then we should pull back into mainline, because everyone who does changes then pulls back to mainline.
So one main problem of that is that we already have this port to Python 3, which is kind of a problem to bring it back because he won't accept, I think for good reason, a only Python 3 version. What he wants probably is rather a Python 2 and 3 version.
Yeah, but Denis has been working on Python 2 and 3 support.
Yes. So okay, and then when we have that, we can
Instead, as I say,
like queue up the other stuff that we made and try to get it in there, and then we can talk about what is to do undo and redo stuff, which is kind of the way I made the serialization stuff is I made it pretty much self-contained, so I did not have to change so much in DEFCON, which is probably not the best way if you want to have a good development of DEFCON for the future. You know, you maybe want to have to DEFCON to bring a bit more of information, exactly the same kind of information actually that you would probably need for undo redo stuff. Not exactly, but so which are those properties that matter for our cause of serialization, for example, or undo redo, which is the same topic, because the stuff you want to serialize or the stuff you want to have in undo redo, that's the data that matters. So that's, and it's probably always the same data. So when you change the meaning of your object, it should serialize differently, and it should like create a undo step for that thing.
Like for the dirty state support in serialization.
I think that's bullcrap, though. Sorry, because we had it already. Because when you serialize your glyph as dirty, and then you, like on every undo step that you do, and then at some point you save it, you have the dirty attribute still in your serialization data. And that's definitely not true then anymore. Either it was saved or it was changed since then, or whatever. Or you don't, even worse probably, you have the it's not dirty state in it. You change your glyph a few times, you make undo, and you don't repeat the save state. So you have at the end you have a dirty glyph or a clean glyph, but it's not the same state as on disk. And dirty is just means dirty is the state on disk is the same as the state on in memory. So and you can't like just save the dirty attribute and come back to that point. It's not true that it's like wrong information.
If we don't trash what's in the undo stack, then it means when we exhaust the stack, it means we are back to the non-dirty state. So it would be one way to kind of model this.
What do you mean exactly?
If on every change you put a state into the undo stack, it means if you go back to all steps until the glyph is like it was originally, then it means you have exhausted the undo stack. So possibly you could say the glyph is not dirty when you do undo, when the undo stack is exhausted.
Which is not true, actually. Yeah. It is true if you delete your undo stack when you save, but you don't want to do that because that's kind of really aggressive towards what user expects from you. So I do 10 changes, then I save my glyph, then I do another change. So now I have like a clean state, not dirty state in my undo stack. I do 10 changes again, save again. Then I have a new, it's not dirty state in my undo stack. Then I go 10 back, and suddenly it says, hey, this is not dirty. But that's not true because I saved in the future from that point on. It's not true at this moment. It's dirty. So we can't have this information in the undo stack. It's just the wrong information. That's the point. It's kind of it's not like that state that you have in your undo stack is always like over time true. If you save in the future, that state is just not true anymore. It's just like that. So probably either we kind of figure out how to do this within the undo queue and itself, like the code that is controlling the undo steps, or I think DEFCON has sometimes at least a way to tell if the data on disk. There is some. I've seen code for that to tell if the data on disk is the same as. It's called like stamp
comparing the data
or something like that. It keeps.
Comparing with data on disk every time would be a bit too expensive.
No, why? You think?
Well, you're triggering I/O just to look if the thing was in not dirty state. It's a bit.
Yeah, maybe it's not always perfect. Yeah, right.
We should find a way, I think, to do it only with in-memory data. It would be the best thing to do, I think. I don't know how other software do that, but.
So what you do actually, what I would do, I think, is when you press the save button, is I would mark. I would probably say index 10 in my undo queue is a clean state. And when I press save again, then maybe it's like 10 indexes later, and then index 20 is the clean state. When I come to the clean state, then I mark everything as clean. So I just count. I just look when did I press save and when.
So maybe not serialize the dirty state with each change, but have a dirty pointer that points to whatever state in the undo stack is.
A not dirty pointer, yeah, in a way. Something like that.
So Felipe mentioned there's a thing in the DEFCON library already. There's a method for external changes.
Yeah, that's like stamp. It's called stamp data or something like that. Yeah, it saves basically the information that's on disk. Yeah.
It's what's used when you want to edit your font in another application. For instance, you're in RoboFont and you hit kerning with Matrix Machine. Then you do the editing, and when you go back to RoboFont, it says, hey, the data was modified in another application. Do you want to reload it? And it pops a sheet which says you can check which part of the font you want to reload, like kerning groups. It shows all parts.
That's not improved yet, is it?
Yeah.
So that should go on the roadmap. Yeah?
Right, yeah. Definitely, because that we don't have a matrix machine there, but it should be compatible, I think, to use it at the same time, because some people can like change their workflow piece by piece.
I have some concerns about this because the developer who did this does not seem very sure about what he's doing. Based on the documentation, he basically says this may change in the future. I'm still thinking this through, but basically there are some caveats. Like the application has to explicitly ask for for the information of whether or not there is an external change. There's no automatic notification because that would be very expensive. Checking.
Yeah, what you have to do is when your application gets focus,
you
do this.
That's one of the ways of doing it.
There's also always also like file system monitoring stuff that you can use, which is kind of messy to do so, but it's not so expensive, I think.
Yeah.
I did something like that. I'm not sure actually.
It only notifies you about changes. External changes in things you actually loaded in the application. So if you open a font, you open the glyph view for one specific glyph, then you access the data, then this is the reference point. If a different glyph you didn't actually access in your instance of the application is modified externally, then when you check, as you didn't load it, you still did not load it, so it will not notice that there's something different.
So what's the problem?
With stuff that you're actually dealing with, which is kind of okay, I think, because you won't perceive that it modified, right? If you didn't actually access it. But
Yeah.
We got to be careful about this.
I think it's okay, but actually we would load all glyphs when we show the glyph overview window. So maybe not at the moment, not the layers actually.
I would also say that this caveat saying that this may change in the future would have been written 4 or 5 years ago and hasn't changed.
Okay. Yeah.
Run a good claim on it.
But then loading everything when you instantiate the font isn't something bad. Maybe for huge fonts.
Yeah, it depends. It really can be a problem. But I think well, maybe we should just try it. We actually do. I mean, we actually read the whole font at the moment, right? When we open the font, we have this overview window, and it reads every glyph. So just maybe open something really big.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe we could sort of move on. So another question I opened on the tracker, which may be faster to discuss face to face, is family support. And in Metaplator, we have one UFO file for a whole family, and we use layers. Is that right, Lasse?
Yeah, it's in a way right. We can think about that if how we organize that, but it's basically we use one UFO file, right? And
so FontLab 6 now has your XFO, which is their particular flavor of UFO, where they also have complete font family projects in one file.
But is it structured like one UFO, or is it structured like a mothership for a lot of UFOs?
Actually, I don't know.
I don't know. I think I remember it's something like an additional file with the metadata about actual UFO. But I'm not sure. I think that's it. We gotta check.
So Adrian, do you have a preference?
I don't think that we need to support families explicitly. In RoboFont, Friedrich did write an extension recently that's called RoboFont Project, and there's like a file that contains a path to a few UFOs, and when you open that, instead of your fonts, it opens all the fonts that you have defined inside of it, so inside of family. And I mean, once you have that, you can pretty much work like when you have a whole family. So yeah, I think I'd like to stick with single one UFO is one font. And then you can work from there, I think.
Okay, so we'd have I'm seeing the project extension now, and yeah, it's 250 lines of code. It's not very much.
Yeah, it's just opening a couple of UFOs at once.
Yeah, and storing the window positions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we need much more than that in terms of family support, because what it buys you is maybe, I don't know, fusing metadata, the part of the metadata. But anyway, you can just copy it between the fonts. So it doesn't buy you much to have explicit support for families. Also, if we don't want to have interpolation support built in, but make a separate tool for that instead, then you don't really need family support.
Yeah, right. We would have like a family extension category in the package manager. Yeah. Cool. Okay. That sounds good. So, in terms of moving forwards, what do you think that Lasse and Felipe could contribute that would be most helpful for you in the next, say, 2 weeks?
So there is the undo support, the full undo support, of course.
Okay, I can write something up. I think I won't just jump in and do something because I want to be sure
Yeah,
that,
sure.
because I think it's going to be a lot of work, so it's better to plan something ahead.
Then we need to yeah, the inspector window needs to be more complete.
Mm-hmm.
Like the transformations are not all present yet. Like we miss a few things. We only have a move scale and symmetry yet. In terms of yeah, and then
So is that something that you think Felipe can help with? Or do you want to do that?
So obviously what's on the roadmap is supporting guidelines. Because in UFO3 you have guidelines natively.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you have this matter of being able to write multiple glyphs in the glyph view.
Yeah.
That's a big task. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I have in mind, and also then there is a lot of documentation work, and maybe we want to provide more interface to the internals via the Python APIs. So there's that too, but it has to be specified.
Would be interesting to know what we need. Like, I can imagine that it would be interesting to just add another drawing tool or so, which is kind of would be an API for like just the glyph window.
Yeah, I have started a patch actually that refactors the tools, because the tools of the glyph view are a big mess right now.
Yeah, they are like a lot of spaghetti code, right?
Yeah, and I have started refactoring it and introduced a lot of bugs because I didn't have the right imports and stuff. So I said it was right before release, so I said okay, I'm going to do that later. I have a stall patch for this that I posted on the issue tracker, so that's another thing that can be worked on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
sorry, which thing is posted on the bug tracker?
About refactoring the drawing tool.
Okay, yeah.
Can give you the number. It's 18, issue 18.
Yeah.
So you'd have to rebase it because maybe the code changed.
Yeah.
I don't think it changed, but you'd have to check.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So they're running over the list of things from the issue tracker. So Glyph Transformations report is there is some more to do there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, give 1 second.
Glyph transformation should be like live in the glyph view as well, or is that the plan? What it should do?
What do you mean live in the glyph view?
Like a tool, like you often have this. How much is it? Eight controls tool in glyphs. Like when you have the bounding box of a shape, and you click on it, and then you have like in every corner one handle and in between, and then you can like transform the width.
Yeah, that
Stuff
would be
like that. Is that the idea of the tool that you guys want to have, or and then
it's also one thing that can be worked on. David, you were
yeah. So it's always we need transformations, and there's like a lot of different ideas how we could do transformations. I mean,
that's box transformations, but Also, for the transformation buttons in the inspector window, we could extend it because right now it always operates on a whole glyph, and you could work on whatever you selected. And I think RoboFont has like a drop-down where you can say I want to apply this to like all of the glyphs or just the current glyph, or so we could also.
So there are many different ideas how this could be done. So if we do the tool in the glyph window, there again it would be very cool if we could create it as a plugin from the very first moment. Because the hard thing actually would do the plugin interface, and then having that tool as like the first user of that plugin interface, very cool, because it would make it possible to write mighty plugins that can change glyphs interactively.
Yeah, sure. But I think the 4 basic tools should be built in, because.
Yeah, of course. You can make it built in, but you should build it the same way like a plugin, so you know that your plugin system doesn't suck.
Yeah, sure.
Because you use it to
pretty much what it does.
Yeah.
So I wrote an abstract class base tool, and then all the tools subclass this, and then you call a function called register tool or something, and you give it the class. And then you have a current tool in the graphics view, and it holds a reference to the class of the tool. And then all the functions, they take this reference and call the functions on it, mouse press event, and so forth. Yeah, because currently I use an enum for this. But you don't need to use an enum to kind of enumerate all the tools. You just have to take a reference to the class. And then you use that to call the functions directly on it. It gets rid of an additional...
yeah, sounds good. Sounds good, I think, yeah.
Anything else, David?
Yeah, so I pasted a link to TitanPad in the Hangout. Do you see it?
I saw it, but it vanished.
Yeah, okay.
So if you click the blue icon on the left of the Hangout, there's like a chat icon. That should open a sidebar.
Okay.
And then in TitanPad, you can click at the bottom full window, which will expand the pad to the full window. And then on the top of the right column, you can name your username. So yeah, this is a few notes that I made from the call and the issues I posted on issue 42. And so I'm just trying to order these into...
Have you put bounding box scaling?
So that would be like medium or quick.
You can put it in big task, or I don't know. Well, it's not a big task actually, because it's not extremely important. Maybe medium, yeah.
Well, so the first thing I want to do is to group them by the size of the task, and then once we've got them grouped like that, we can then agree on a priority order.
Support UFO3 guidelines is not a big task.
Okay.
You have to map it like you map anchors and stuff. It just has to be a line, and it also has an angle, so you need to keep the angle in sync and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, it depends what you want from guidelines. If you want to have like snap to guidelines, it's stuff like. Do you know Inkscape?
Inkscape?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've used that a couple of times.
There's very good support for snapping to different lines and stuff like that. That's very, very handy if you want to have like a point positioned exactly on your guideline, or you can even like snap it to the whole curves and stuff like that. You can switch it on and off. That's really handy stuff for some things. I mean, you have to be able to turn it on and off, of course. But I think guidelines without a function to snap to the guidelines and to be sure you have exactly like that X value or whatever on your point is not so helpful. Because
yeah, sure. The guideline should also beam through the stem, like give you stem measurement.
That was
There's that in the trufont, and it's quite useful sometimes.
yeah, that's cool. Yeah, right.
I mean, it's not the most important part.
No, that's right.
It's cool to
But
have.
I think if you really want to have like a very like active system of guides and stuff, that's some work. But it's probably not first thing I would do as well.
Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. So on line 18, does line 18 of the Titan pad explain this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So copying and pasting points with their contours. Adrian, you said the notification rewind is there, just implement copy paste, and it can drop the last point on an open contour. Is that, and then I need to consolidate the algorithm. Is that all done?
Yeah, it's still to do, but I don't know. I have to try again to see if there is problems with copying partial contours.
Okay, but that seems like something relatively quick.
Yeah, it's just a matter of fixing the algorithm.
Yeah.
Let me try it.
So side bearings dragging, that seems fairly quick.
It's at least a medium task still, because you have to program the whole thing and make it, react to your changes and stuff. So
Right. Okay.
quite a task.
Okay. That sounds like refactoring the Glyph view canvas in general.
I don't know what sort of refactoring you mean. So.
All right. And is it left and right side bearings that you want to have draggable, or just the right bearing?
Yeah, left and right, sure.
Right.
That was done in FontForge once. I was lagging as hell.
Yeah. So you had polished PixMap support.
Yeah, because right now you can drop PixMap into the view.
Uh-huh.
And then you have, I made it, it's really hacky. You just have one handle on the bottom right of the picture to resize it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it uses the same sizing mechanism as the points, which I'm not 100% satisfied of. But
Yeah. So it could be better with like support for transformations and stuff like this.
yes, and RoboFont has a fit image functionality. It pops a sheet and you just click on the points which are on the baseline and so forth if you want to match the scan of a glyph with your canvas. Because sometimes you put the image and it's really extremely big, and you have to resize it and resize it again, and it's hard to fit it exactly.
Right.
So it's quite a help.
Okay.
It would be good to have a functionality that resizes on all corners, because right now you just grab one side and do like this. And it would be good to have something that resizes on all the corners at once. You see what I mean?
Yeah. So you want resizing handles on all corners.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay. So supporting tangent points, that's another.
Yeah. And you told that glyphs did not support tangent points, but I think it does actually.
Yeah, it supports them sort of implicitly. Because UFO itself doesn't have tangent points, does it?
Tangent points is just a UI abstraction. It shouldn't be stored in the file.
Yeah.
I think FontForge does it, but it shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So it's just you calculate the angle, and if the angle is within your threshold, it means it's a tangent point.
Yeah.
But there is a smooth attribute in UFO.
Yeah, it's only if it's smooth that it can be a tangent point.
Yeah, but I wouldn't actually. I think
Tangent
you're
point.
doing it right. You don't change it to automatically be smooth when you set the attribute. I think you just change it when you start to drag the one of the handles. You change the angle of the other point and make it the tangent point, right?
Yeah, but I think the tangentness shouldn't be an attribute of DEFCON. It's just a display time that you, in the objects themselves.
But how do you restore the state of the editor? Because a user would probably expect that his
Normally,
tangent points stay tangent points.
Each time you create your objects on the scene, then the object will do that check.
Based on the angle.
Yes.
Which changes maybe what the author wants to happen. So maybe if they just happen to be a tangent point, but you don't really want them to be one. I don't know. I'm not sure actually if how much of this is important as information. But I think where I am on your page actually is that I think it's bad to have this notion of this is a tangent point, and then storing the angles of both points differently. That's a problem because then you have like data that is not coherent to each other. But that's kind of, you can't really fix it in the Glyph files. I think you can't just save the angle of a control point and say get the magnitude from other way around. Just save the magnitude and say get the angle from the other point. You can't do this.
Yeah, actually, we may just have to save that into an attribute. Because let's say if you have tangent point initially and then you, like, I don't know, double click on it to make it not be a tangent point, then somehow this should be kept throughout, throughout the time when the font is opened, I think.
So you want to remember that information, that it's not a tangent point?
Yeah, so if we want to remember that, we have to store it in an attribute in DEFCON.
So the smooth attribute is okay.
But smooth attribute is not enough because tangent is a subset of smooth. I mean, tangent is a smooth point that has a tangent that has a line segment, and then you have a point with a tangent that follows the line segment.
Oh, that thing. Oh, right. Oh, yes, I get it. Oh, yes. No, that's okay. I think I get it. Yeah.
It's tricky to implement, but I mean, to architecture, because you have a few ways to store this information. I need to think about it more because I haven't much thought about it yet.
So isn't it okay? Tangent point is you have a line and then you have a curved segment following it,
Mhm.
and it's smooth. Basically, that's it.
Yeah.
And that implies that when you change the line, the angle of the control point changes as well.
Yes, normally.
So
And
that's
also,
also
when you move the off curve, it's constrained along the line.
right. Well, there are a lot of cool constraints I can think of for stuff like that, or not constraints or whatever. So you could make a lot of different things out of that. For example, what was I thinking? Now there are some tools, like when you have a on-curve point and you want to move it, sometimes you don't want to move the off-curve points. You just want to move the on-curve point, and you maybe want to constrain the movement on the like directions of your handles, stuff like that. So that's interesting to do because you can fix your like small things in your curve without having to move 2 nodes or 3 nodes.
Another thing to do is allow to kind of move the on curve along the off curve path.
Yeah, that's what I think. Pretty much, yeah.
We added this functionality into FontForge. It was late 2014. Because it's quite useful when you kind of balance your contours.
Or for example, what I would actually, I think what would be interesting, I don't know if people would use it, so maybe it's only interesting for me, is if you have a smooth point, you have like the other control point always following like the angle, the change in the angle, right? But why can't you have like the same feature for if the point is not smooth? Like you have some like this configuration, or like maybe a 90 degrees angle. Why can't it change like that? Nobody made that.
Because
it's the same thing.
If your point is not smooth, it means you don't have a relationship between the two.
Yes, but it should be possible to have this at least temporary for a tool too. You know, kind of you hold a modifier, or you choose the tool that does this kind of thing or whatever. Why not? I mean, like 90 degrees is maybe something that happens actually. Or whatever degrees you want to have. Maybe you have kind of whatever. So this is kind of tools.
Because if you have off curves, for instance, and a serif G between the two loops, you have this kind of point. But both loops, you draw them independently from each other. I mean, it's not like I want to have this angle. It's like I move the points and the angle is not an invariant you want
the angle was just an example. So the angle, but maybe you just want to keep the angle that is there. You don't want to know which angle it is, but you just want to move the points around the on curve point, but you don't want to change the angle actually. So you have to move 2 points, and you have to try to get close to what you had before, because there's no way to lock the other just into the same change. Whatever.
If you have a good enough plugin system, it might be a good benchmark for it.
Right. Yeah, so I'm hoping that I can do some stuff like that with the metapolator stuff when we are at that point, when we like do a drawing thing, because you can actually quite easily like define these kinds of relations in CPS. You can just say, oh, this angle is that angle plus 180 degrees, and then it will always be that. And this angle is the one you can change. But I think it will be very challenging to make a user interface for that is easy to use. So maybe it's cool to
practice.
Huh?
I don't think so. Extremely useful in practice.
Well, we will see.
I mean, my experience as a type designer, I've never needed something like this. So.
I often missed stuff like that, actually. What I, for example, often missed is, that's different but similar anyways, is when you draw an outline and I have like like an O or whatever, so you have in your stem you have the inner point of the form and an outer point of the form. And it's very often in the font that you have more or less the same configuration, like it's kind of the same angle, the same distance from each other. So, but it's often very hard to really keep that constraint that you say you have it in most of your forms or in many of your forms. So it would be just nice to say, okay, this is really, I want to define this as whatever, this distance, this angle, and this is the kind of point I have here, and it behaves like that. Just to, like a way to have these micro conventions that you build usually in your type design in a way more fixed or better defined like that.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever. But I think it's hard to do. So, but I think it can be done with what I'm building right now. But I'm still not sure if it will be a tool that is like usable for anyone. But I hope no. So the idea is I built this stuff and just have a lot of like possibilities in there, like where when someone comes like me and says, oh, I want this crazy tool and it's hard to do and everywhere else. But here actually I have support to kind of implement this crazy tool and maybe I can then work, like that. So you can do it. You don't have to. Maybe it works out. I'm not sure. It's very much more experimental in a way, I think.
David, how are you? What are you doing?
I'm editing the pad. It's back up.
Okay. Well, maybe we have covered most of what we had to.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
So near the bottom, you can see there's in core or extension, line 58 and 60.
So what do you hint at?
So we have this idea of having the nudge mode, proportionally changing neighbor handles. Do you think that should be an extension?
Could be the batteries included the extension.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's extended for
the improved measurement tool. Would that also be batteries included extensions?
Well, it could just be merged into the current measurement tool.
Okay, so you would accept the nudge tool as you would accept patches to the measure tool, but not to nudge.
Well, because nudge is like a different way to go about the selection tool.
Okay.
Because you still need the default selection tool that doesn't interpolate.
Okay.
So the idea is to leverage the modular tool system to add a new tool that does the same except it interpolates.
Right. So a measure tool which does more fancy kinds of measurements.
It does the fancy measurement tool, as you call it, still does the basic measurement that the current tool does as well.
Yes.
So there's no need to have
duplicate
different tools for that.
Okay. Okay, I see. That's fine. All right. So update to UFO 3 DEFCON. I didn't exactly understand what you meant by that. Line 64.
Line 64.
That's already done.
In the Titan pad.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it was an update. It wasn't up to date on my screen. Yeah, it's done.
The supporting of all UFO3 attributes is probably not done, but we are using UFO3 DEFCON.
We miss guidelines. Is that all, or?
Good question.
Okay, we can make an issue to check.
Yeah, sure. There's at least guidelines, and I have opened an issue for guidelines already.
Yeah. Okay. So that's definitely a quick task. So if we go to the top then, so line 5. So displaying or editing multiple glyphs in the glyph view is a pretty big task.
Yeah, and then half-bus support or Tal Lemmings shaping package.
Yeah.
We should use half-bus because half-bus has like included support for strangely shaped languages, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's definitely not in the thing of Tal, and as Dave said, I think Tal doesn't really like develop it further. And half-bus has a very good, as far as I've seen it, Python
Because
API.
there is a pull request to it from Höfler and Co. And then maybe if these guys are using it, I mean, I know it doesn't shape everything you can shape out there, but if you don't need like everything half-bus provides, like an index shaper and stuff, it's maybe a lighter dependency. I mean, I don't know, but maybe we can just stick to half-bus, but that's just an idea, since we have the whole stack of Python UFO things.
Yeah, I'm happy to say we can.
I have something to say about that, by the way. We need a way to, well, it would be quite cool to have a way to render as in FontForge with all, so the futures, but also possibly with hints. Like I saw what FontForge does. For instance, in the matrix window, you can have rendering with subpixel, subpixel rendering with hints. And what it does, it asks a free type for a bitmap or of the font. So it just says I'm displaying at this size, and then free type generates a bitmap. And then it displays that. So that would buy us subpixel rendering and also a preview with hints. When you're late in the design process, you want to preview your with hints, probably.
Okay,
yeah,
that sounds like a big task, though.
Sorry?
I remember that FontLab did do something like that, but it would do different rendering on a Windows system because it would use the native Windows like renderer and stuff like that. So I'm not sure if
pre-type it will be the same on all platforms.
Yeah, but your font will be rendered like that on Windows. Windows does not render with free type, so you don't have a good preview for Windows behavior in the editor. You just have a free type preview.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be interesting as well to have at least the option to say, okay, I'm on a Windows system, use the Windows renderer for this, or I'm on a Mac, use the Mac one, and then you can have at least this control if you want it, or if you are used to it because you come from FontForge, FontLab, I think, was it?
But we'll have to build a real font for this to happen. I mean, real binary fonts. By the way, for futures support, for instance, if you look at Tal's package that shapes, it needs a compiled font. It needs a font tools font, I think. So we need to build a real font out of this. So I think what we could do is pre-cache the futures in the UFO, so compile the binary part of these futures. I don't know if it's doable with font tools, and then you kind of wire this precompiled feature to the glyphs of the font that you have compiled as well. Because I mean, the FEA language is not very convenient for application. I mean, it's just raw text and stuff, so you have to compile it. I don't know if future preview in RoboFont lags or instantaneous.
Don't know.
Because if you need to compile the font, there's probably a slight delay. Whereas in FontForge, there is no delay when you open the matrix window and you have instant access to shaping. So we'll have to see kind of how we're going to build a font tools font to get that in shape. It's another topic of research.
We can ask Bedad for it. I think depends on what you want to do. If you want to do shaping, I think there's definitely a way to build a font that, for instance, does not include the outlines, because you can always draw the outlines yourself. In our case.
Yeah, I think for shaping you can just give a string and a CMap, and it should be useful as long as it knows what characters you've got. And yeah. So definitely we should ask a bit about that.
Okay, I've got to go, guys. The pad is now organized into what I consider to be, sort of big, medium, and small tasks.
Okay.
So, Adrian, what I'd like to suggest is that you order these, into what you think is most important, and then assign, people to each of them.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
By people, you mean Lasse and Felipe?
Yes.
Okay. So Lasse, do you want to work on the full undo stuff, or?
Yeah, I can definitely. I had a look already, like 2 weeks
Or maybe
ago.
it's not the priority. It's not the top priority.
No, I think what I would do next is definitely like figure out what I would do and suggest that to you guys, and then we can still think about if I should do it right away or not, because I think that's kind of it will change DEFCON probably a bit. So.
The other topics to work on is finishing the modular tools for the Glyph view.
Is that line 19?
19.
Issue 18 on GitHub.
Yeah.
Okay. And
that's a good one, definitely.
What is there that you think Felipe could work on?
Trying to figure what's the most important. So there is the improved measurement tool. It can be quite useful. And there's the scale with the bounding box.
I would say that the bounding box would be pretty high priority.
Yeah.
All right.
Also, I'm pretty interested in this enhanced edit mode, but it depends on how we define the extension API or procedures. But I would like to help define this, to brainstorm what will it mean, what are the capabilities that we have to include in the extensions system in order to get this working.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the APIs will be defined, in the open, it's always good to have multiple people's opinions when you define.
Yeah, and you want to work on the kerning editor, right, Adrian?
Do I want to?
Yeah.
Where was the question, sir?
You want to work on the kerning editor?
Not just yet, but
yes, in the future.
yeah, and it's a separate program, so I'd like to get this one, I mean, in shape, working properly without bugs, without problems, complaints and stuff, and then we'll see, because kerning is kind of the last step before hinting, before shipping the font, so we should get everything around drawing and spacing figured out and easy to use and so forth, and afterwards we'll see. I mean.
Okay, all right. So yeah, that sounds good. So Felipe is getting on the B-Box. Lars is going to look at undo, and there's a lot of little things that Felipe could work on, and then we could do another call in, maybe a couple of weeks, sync up.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Nice. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.